8 signs you have a strong, unshakable personality. A Buddhist perspective. Some people don't need to speak much to be noticed. They don't try to stand out. They don't seek validation, yet there's something about them that naturally commands respect. Have you ever felt the weight of people's eyes on you, sensing a mix of admiration and hesitation? There are moments when you simply stand there, doing nothing at all, yet you can feel the atmosphere around you shift. Some are drawn to you, curious to understand you more. Others keep their distance, unsure, maybe even feeling a little intimidated. It's not because you're doing anything wrong. It's because you have a strong inner presence, a quiet confidence that is rare in a world full of uncertainty. Your strength doesn't come from loud words or an overpowering presence. It comes from within, from the way you think, from the way you stand firm in your values, from the way you refuse to let others define your worth. It's the confidence of someone who knows who they are, what they need, and who won't lose themselves just to please others. But because of this, you may often be misunderstood. The world is comfortable with people who blend in, who follow along, who don't challenge the norm. But you're different. You don't accept things just because that's how it's always been. You think deeply, you ask questions, you seek truth instead of empty words. And that can make people uncomfortable. Some will admire you, others may find you intimidating, distant, or even difficult to approach. And if you don't fully understand your own nature, you might start wondering, am I too intense? Why do I sometimes feel like an outsider, even in a crowd? But remember, you are not alone. And this is not a weakness. This is a gift. Buddhism teaches that true strength is not about controlling others, but mastering oneself. The strongest people don't need to prove anything, don't need to win every argument. They simply exist with purpose, and their presence alone is enough to create change. Today, we'll uncover 8 signs that you have a strong, even intimidating personality. But more importantly, I'll help you understand how to turn this strength into a source of inspiration, so that instead of unintentionally creating distance, you can help others feel safe, grounded, and empowered in your presence. Because real power isn't about standing above others. It's about standing firmly within yourself, calm, unwavering, and full of wisdom. Let's begin. 1. You prioritize wisdom over conformity. There is a quiet strength in those who refuse to accept things at face value. While the world often rewards those who comply without question, true wisdom belongs to those who dare to think deeply, to challenge, to seek beyond the obvious. These individuals do not question out of defiance, nor do they resist authority for the sake of rebellion. Instead, their motivation is simple yet profound. They desire truth, not comfort, clarity, not conformity, and that, in itself, makes them different. Picture this: a group discussion where opinions flow easily, a consensus forming before any real thought is given. Most people nod, eager to move along, content with agreement for the sake of harmony. But then there is you. Something doesn't sit right, not because you enjoy disagreement, not because you wish to stand out, but because your mind simply will not accept something without understanding it. And so, you ask a question, not to disrupt, not to argue, but to gain clarity. And suddenly, there is a shift. Some pause, intrigued, their curiosity awakened by the possibility of a deeper discussion. But others grow uneasy. Why? Because questions disrupt certainty, and most people find comfort in certainty, even when it is built on shaky ground. To question is to unsettle. It forces people to examine beliefs they may have held onto for years, perhaps even lifetimes. And that, for many, is uncomfortable. The Buddha understood this resistance to questioning. In the Kalama Sutta, he spoke directly to those who blindly followed traditions, urging them to think for themselves. Do not believe in something simply because it has been passed down. Question, investigate, and seek the truth yourself. This teaching remains as powerful today as it was thousands of years ago. It reminds us that wisdom is not found in passive acceptance, nor in blindly opposing what already exists. True wisdom is born from discernment, the ability to examine, to reflect, and to see things as they are. not as we wish them to be. But here is where many go wrong. They wield wisdom like a sword, eager to cut through ignorance, forgetting that truth, when delivered without compassion, can wound rather than enlighten. There is a difference between asking questions to expand understanding and asking questions to prove others wrong. One invites dialogue, the other builds walls. This is why wisdom must always walk hand in hand with kindness. The goal is not to dominate discussions, not to appear intellectually superior, but to lead by example, gently guiding, rather than forcing others to think more deeply. Those who are truly wise do not demand agreement. They do not need to be right at the expense of others. They plant seeds of thought, allowing truth to take root in its own time. And so, when you find yourself in a moment where the crowd moves in one direction, and you feel the quiet pull of truth urging you to pause, to question, do not resist it. Do not let the fear of making others uncomfortable silence you. But also, do not let the need to be heard overpower the wisdom of patience. Truth, when spoken with care, has a way of finding those who are ready for it. This is the essence of true wisdom. It does not seek to win arguments or prove a point. It seeks only to illuminate, to guide others, not by force, but by the quiet, unwavering presence of truth itself. 2. You are unmoved by external validation. True wisdom is not measured by how well we conform, nor by how easily we gain approval. It is found in the quiet confidence of those who move through life guided by their own inner compass, not by the shifting tides of public opinion. The world teaches us, from an early age, to seek validation, to look outside ourselves for reassurance, for confirmation that we are doing the right thing, that we are good enough, worthy enough, acceptable. And yet, no matter how much approval one gathers, it never seems to be enough. It is like trying to fill a cup with a hole at the bottom. What flows in just as quickly seeps out, leaving behind a constant hunger for more. But you are different. You do not chase after praise, nor do you shrink in the face of criticism. You do not let applause inflate your ego, nor do you let disapproval shake your foundation. You understand, perhaps instinctively, that external validation is fleeting, and to base your sense of self on something so unstable is to live in a constant state of insecurity. Instead, you choose something far more powerful. You choose to trust yourself. Imagine this: a friend invites you to a gathering, one you know you have no desire to attend, not because you dislike your friend, but because you value your own time. Maybe you need a quiet evening to reflect, to recharge. Maybe you have personal goals that require your energy and attention. So, you decline. You don't over-explain. You don't apologize. You don't feel guilty. You simply know what is best for you. And you honor that without hesitation. Most people would second-guess themselves. They would worry, will they think I don't care? Will they be offended? But for you, the need for approval does not outweigh the need for self-respect. You listen to others, but you do not let their opinions dictate your choices. You are kind, but you are not swayed by guilt. And in that, there is great power. The Buddha understood this deeply. He saw how easily human beings become enslaved by the fear of judgment. How they shape their actions not according to wisdom but according to the shifting expectations of those around them. And so, he taught, just as a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, the wise remain unmoved by praise or blame. But here's the key: detachment does not mean indifference. It does not mean shutting people out or living in isolation. It means freedom. It means that you remain open to feedback but are not defined by it. You listen with compassion, but you are not controlled by the need to please. There is a misconception that those who do not seek validation are cold, distant, or arrogant. In truth, they are simply free. They do not need to prove themselves because they have already accepted themselves. Their actions stem from integrity, not the hunger for approval. They understand that opinions change, but character remains. This is the essence of inner peace, the unwavering certainty that your worth is not determined by the applause or criticism of others. And when you no longer seek external validation, you gain something far greater: the ability to live authentically, To be fully yourself, without fear, without hesitation, without needing permission. 3. You live by strong ethical principles. There is a quiet power in those who refuse to betray their own values. Even when no one is watching, they do not seek recognition for their integrity, nor do they expect applause for doing what is right. They act with honesty not because it is easy, not because it is convenient, but because it is simply who they are. In a world where shortcuts are often rewarded, where bending the truth is seen as pragmatic, and where compromise can feel like the price of success, people like this stand out, not because they try to, but because they cannot do otherwise. Imagine working in an environment where ethical lines are blurred. Perhaps colleagues manipulate numbers to make results look better, or a culture of favoritism allows them to advance while others are left behind. You notice it. You see how easily people justify these actions to themselves. It's not a big deal. Everyone does it. This is just how the system works. But you don't, not because you wish to be difficult, not because you want to appear morally superior, but because something within you resists. It is not in your nature to deceive, to manipulate, to take advantage. The easy path may be tempting, but it is not for you. And here is where things become complicated. Some will respect you for it. They will see in you a kind of strength that is rare, an unwavering commitment to what is right. But others may resent you, because your presence alone is a reminder of what they have compromised. People do not like to be confronted with their own moral failings. And when they are, even indirectly, they often lash out. They may call you rigid, unyielding, difficult. They may try to pressure you into conformity, telling you that you are making things harder for yourself. But you do not waver, because your integrity is not based on external validation, nor is it contingent on whether others approve. It is a reflection of your deepest values, a commitment to something greater than personal gain. The Buddha understood this challenge. He spoke of right action, samma kamanta, as a guiding principle in the Noble Eightfold Path. He warned that integrity would not always be easy, that it would sometimes come at great cost. And yet, he taught, even if one should carry me on their shoulders and throw me into a pit of burning coals, I will not break my virtue. This is not about public displays of righteousness. It is not about proving yourself to others. Nor is it about looking down on those who choose a different path. True integrity is not performative. It is quiet, steady, unshakable. It does not seek attention. It does not require approval. It simply is. But integrity, like wisdom, must be wielded with care. It is easy to fall into the trap of judgment, to mistake moral clarity for moral superiority. The truly wise do not use their ethics as a weapon against others. They do not shame or condemn. Instead, they lead by example, offering an alternative, a way of being that is rooted in truth but expressed with compassion. And so, when faced with moments that test you, when you see the world bending around you and feel the pressure to do the same, remember this: your integrity is not a burden, it is a light. Not everyone will appreciate it, not everyone will understand it, but in staying true to yourself, you give others permission to do the same. That is the quiet power of unshakable principles, not to demand that the world change, but to be the change that others might one day have the courage to follow. 4. You are comfortable with solitude. There is a reason why silence makes many people uncomfortable. When the noise fades, when there are no conversations to distract, no notifications to respond to, and no social validation to grasp onto, one is left with only themselves. And for many, that is unsettling. The absence of external affirmation forces them to sit with their own thoughts, their own fears, their own unresolved emotions. The quiet can feel empty, almost suffocating, because they have never learned how to be alone without feeling lonely. But for those who have found strength within themselves, solitude is not something to escape, it is something to embrace. It is not a void to be filled with company or entertainment, but a space in which clarity can emerge. When you are truly comfortable with yourself, time spent alone is not a burden, but a refuge. It is where you reconnect with your own thoughts, your own intuition, your own sense of purpose. Lisa was someone who, for most of her life, believed that happiness could only be found in relationships. She sought fulfillment in the company of others, thinking that the presence of people around her would provide the sense of security and belonging she craved. But time and time again, she was met with disappointment. Friends who were there during the good times disappeared when she needed them most. Conversations that once felt meaningful began to feel shallow. She realized that no matter how many people she surrounded herself with, there was always a lingering emptiness, a need that no one else seemed able to fill. One day, after experiencing a painful loss, she did something she had never done before. Instead of seeking comfort from others, she turned inward. She spent time in silence, not avoiding her pain but allowing herself to fully feel it. She walked alone, listened to the sound of her own breath, and observed the thoughts that rose and fell like waves in her mind. And in that stillness, she discovered something unexpected: peace. A kind of peace that was not dependent on whether or not someone was there. A kind of peace that came not from distraction, but from deep acceptance. The Buddha understood this. He often retreated into solitude for meditation, not because he rejected human connection, but because he knew that true clarity could only be found when one turned inward. He taught, "If you find no companion on your path, walk alone, like a king who has renounced his kingdom." This does not mean withdrawing from the world or isolating oneself out of bitterness. It does not mean rejecting relationships or denying the importance of meaningful connections. Rather, it means recognizing that true contentment does not come from external sources, it comes from within. The ability to be at peace in solitude is not a sign of loneliness, but of strength. When you are truly comfortable with yourself, you do not need constant validation from others to feel worthy. You do not fear silence because you have learned that the deepest insights often arise from stillness. You do not chase after companionship out of fear of being alone, because you have discovered that your own presence is enough. This does not mean that you do not value relationships. It simply means that you do not depend on them to define your happiness. When you are content within yourself, the relationships you do form are built on authenticity, not on neediness. You do not cling to others out of fear of being alone, but rather, you connect with them from a place of wholeness. And so, if you ever find yourself walking alone, sitting in silence, feeling the weight of solitude, do not resist it. Do not see it as an emptiness to be filled, but as a space in which to grow. Because in that space, you may just find the most profound truth of all, that the most reliable source of happiness has been within you all along. 5. You speak the truth, even when it's hard. There are moments in life when silence feels like the easier choice. A careless remark from a loved one, a colleague taking credit for your work, a friend who continuously oversteps boundaries. It would be simple to brush it aside, to say nothing, to avoid discomfort, and many do. They swallow their frustration, let things slide, convince themselves that preserving harmony is more important than speaking up. But harmony that comes at the cost of truth is fragile. It is an illusion, a peace built on unspoken resentment, on emotions buried beneath a forced smile. Those who choose truth over convenience understand this deeply. They know that silence may avoid conflict in the short term, but in the long run, it erodes trust. Not just in relationships, but in oneself. Imagine having a friend who constantly takes your kindness for granted. You always show up for them, offer support when they need it, but when the roles are reversed, they are nowhere to be found. You feel the imbalance growing, the unspoken disappointment settling in your heart, and then comes the choice. Do you let it fester in silence, allowing resentment to take root, or do you speak the truth? A strong person chooses the latter, not with anger, not with blame, but with honesty. I value our friendship, but I feel unappreciated. Let's talk about it. Some will respect you for it. They will recognize the courage it takes to voice your feelings with clarity and kindness. They will listen, reflect, and perhaps even grow from it. Others, however, will resist. They may become defensive, feel threatened, or pull away. But either way, you remain true to yourself. This is the essence of right speech, samma vaka, in the Buddhist tradition, not just speaking truthfully, but doing so with intention, wisdom, and compassion. The Buddha did not teach that one should always speak, nor did he suggest that truth should be delivered harshly. Instead, he encouraged speech that is both honest and mindful, speech that fosters understanding rather than division. Speak only that which is true and beneficial. Speak with kindness, or not at all. But this is where many struggle. Some confuse truth with bluntness, mistaking harsh words for honesty. They wield truth like a weapon, using it to cut rather than to heal. But truth, when spoken without compassion, does not enlighten, it alienates. The wise know that the goal of truth is not to prove oneself right, but to bring clarity, to open doors, to encourage growth. They understand that timing matters, delivery matters, and intention matters. They do not speak to win arguments, but to nurture understanding. And so, the next time you find yourself faced with the choice between silence and truth, ask yourself, is this a truth that needs to be spoken? Can it be said with kindness? Will it serve a purpose greater than my own need to be heard? If the answer is yes, then speak. Speak not to attack, but to illuminate. Speak not to create division, but to strengthen the foundation of your relationships. Speak, because truth told with wisdom has the power to heal, to guide, and to inspire. A life built on truth is a life lived with integrity, and though not everyone may welcome it, the right people, the ones who truly value you, will always respect it. 6. Your presence commands attention. There is something powerful about a person who doesn't have to demand attention, because attention naturally gravitates toward them. It's not about being the loudest in the room or asserting dominance over others. It's something deeper, something unspoken yet undeniable. It's presence, a quiet force that shifts the energy of a space without force or intention. Simply by being. You've likely experienced this yourself. You enter a room, and though you say nothing, people subtly adjust their behavior. Some straighten up, others lower their voices. A few become more careful with their words. There is a shift, small but perceptible, as if the air itself recognizes that something has changed. It is not because you demand respect, but because you carry yourself in a way that commands it. At first, this can be confusing, even isolating. You may wonder why some people hesitate before speaking to you, why others seem slightly intimidated. You are not doing anything different. You are simply being yourself. And yet, the reactions of those around you tell a different story. Some people will admire your presence. They will find comfort in your stability, in the sense of certainty you bring. They will be drawn to the quiet confidence you exude, the kind that is not performative but deeply rooted. Others, however, may feel unsettled, not because you intend to intimidate, but because your presence challenges them to be more aware of themselves. People who are used to chaos, to noise, to surface-level interactions may struggle in the presence of someone who does not seek approval, who does not fill space just to be noticed. The Buddha embodied this kind of presence. He did not need to raise his voice, yet when he spoke, people listened. He did not command authority, yet rulers and scholars bowed before him, not out of obligation but out of reverence. His strength was not in force, but in stillness. He taught not through dominance, but through example. One who is calm and wise is like a deep lake, still on the surface, yet unfathomable in depth. True presence does not come from trying to be important. It comes from inner alignment, from knowing who you are, what you stand for, and moving through the world with unwavering clarity. It is a reflection of self-mastery, of not being easily swayed by external chaos. But presence, like any strength, must be wielded with awareness. If misunderstood, it can create distance rather than connection. Some may mistake your stillness for detachment, your quiet for judgment. That is why true presence is not just about being noticed, it is about making others feel safe, seen, and understood. When you recognize the impact of your presence, you can use it with intention. Instead of allowing it to create separation, you can soften it with warmth. Instead of letting it be misinterpreted as aloofness, you can channel it into guidance. True strength does not isolate, it elevates. And so, if you have ever felt different because of the way people respond to you, if you have wondered why your presence seems to hold weight, understand this: it is not something to shrink from, nor is it something to exploit. It is a gift, one that, when used with wisdom, has the power to inspire, to reassure, and to lead, not through force, but through the quiet strength of simply being. 7. Your words carry weight. There is an undeniable power in words, but not all words carry the same weight. Some people speak constantly, filling the air with noise, yet saying very little. Their words dissipate as quickly as they are spoken, leaving no lasting impact. Others, however, speak sparingly, but when they do, their words settle deeply, resonating long after the conversation has ended. Their presence alone commands attention, but it is their words that truly hold influence. Perhaps you've noticed this in your own life. You sit in a room where conversations flow effortlessly, small talk, opinions, laughter. People speak to fill the silence, to be acknowledged, to contribute something, anything. And yet, when you finally choose to speak, the dynamic shifts. The room grows quieter, faces turn toward you. It's not because you have forced anyone to listen. It's because they want to listen. They sense that what you are about to say carries meaning. This is not about volume. It's not about being the loudest or the most assertive. It's about the intention behind your words. Some people speak simply to be heard, while others speak because they have something worth hearing. You fall into the latter group. You don't waste words. You don't talk for the sake of talking. You choose your words carefully. And because of that, people instinctively pay attention. But this ability comes with great responsibility. Words, when spoken without thought, can create confusion, harm, and division. A careless remark can plant seeds of doubt. A harsh statement can wound deeper than any physical blow. That is why the Buddha taught right speech, Samma Vaka, as part of the Noble Eightfold Path, not just to speak truthfully, but to speak wisely. A wise person speaks only after careful consideration. This is not to say that you must always remain silent, nor does it mean holding back your thoughts out of fear of how they will be received. It means speaking with purpose, choosing words that build rather than break, that illuminate rather than confuse, that inspire rather than diminish. But this kind of speech is rare. The world is filled with voices that speak without listening, opinions that are shared without reflection. It is why so many conversations feel empty, why so much communication lacks depth. In contrast, when you speak, your words hold weight because they are not spoken lightly. They come from a place of clarity, of thoughtfulness, of sincerity. Yet, this power must be wielded with care. When your words hold weight, people may sometimes hesitate to engage with you, afraid they must measure up to your depth or wisdom. Some may feel intimidated, unsure of how to respond. This is why true wisdom is not just knowing what to say, but how to say it. The goal is never to dominate a conversation or to prove oneself right, but to create space for understanding. So, the next time you choose to speak, let it be intentional. Speak not to fill the silence, but to bring clarity where there is confusion, to bring comfort where there is doubt, to bring truth where there is illusion. Speak not for attention, but for meaning. And remember, words that carry weight do not come from a need to be heard, but from a deep understanding that when you do speak, your words should be worth listening to. 8. You are decisive and direct. There is a quiet power in those who do not hesitate, who move through life with clarity and purpose, while others are caught in the endless loop of overthinking, paralyzed by doubt. You act, you assess, you decide, and you move forward. This decisiveness is often admired. People look to you for guidance, for direction, for the certainty that they struggle to find within themselves. But at times, it can also be misunderstood. Imagine a group of friends debating where to eat. They go back and forth, weighing every option, unable to commit to a decision. The conversation drags on, frustration builds, and still, no choice is made. Finally, you step in. cutting through the indecision with effortless clarity. Let's go here, the food is great. Some will appreciate it, relieved that someone had the confidence to make a choice. But others may see it differently. They may mistake your decisiveness for control, your efficiency for dominance. It is not that you impose your will upon others, but rather that your presence exposes their own inability to decide. And for some, that can feel unsettling. But decisiveness is not about control, it is about clarity. It is about trusting yourself, about knowing that no decision will ever be perfect, but that inaction is always worse. The truly wise do not fear making choices because they understand that even a wrong decision, when made with awareness, is simply another step in the path of learning. The Buddha understood the suffering that arises from indecision. He taught that clarity leads to peace, while hesitation breeds anxiety. In Buddhism, right action and right intention, Samma Kammanta and Samma Sankappa, are essential elements of the Noble Eightfold Path. They guide us to make decisions with wisdom, not impulse, with purpose, not fear. Indecision leads to suffering, while clarity leads to peace. But being decisive is not just about efficiency, it is about responsibility. A leader does not act simply for the sake of acting, they act with awareness, with integrity, with compassion. True decisiveness is not reckless, nor is it rigid. It does not force others into submission, but rather creates movement, allowing progress to unfold. And so, when you make decisions, you do so not because you crave control, but because you recognize that clarity serves the greater good. You do not hesitate, not because you think you are always right, but because you understand that progress requires action. You are not afraid to take responsibility, to bear the weight of choice, while others stand in uncertainty. But just as words must be wielded with wisdom, so must decisiveness. There is a difference between leading and dictating, between moving forward and pushing forward. The strongest leaders are not those who force their way, but those who inspire confidence in others. True decisiveness is not just about choosing the path, it is about helping others walk it with you. And so, the next time someone mistakes your clarity for control, remember, their hesitation is not your burden to carry. Move forward, not with force, but with understanding. Make decisions, not just for yourself, but for the benefit of those around you. Act with wisdom, speak with confidence, and walk with purpose. For in a world filled with uncertainty, those who trust themselves will always be the ones who lead the way. Strength is often misunderstood. Some see it as dominance, others as detachment. But true strength, the kind that does not waver in the face of adversity, that does not demand attention yet commands respect, is something far greater. It is not about overpowering others, nor is it about standing apart just to be different. It is about knowing who you are and standing firmly in that truth. Regardless of how the world reacts, there is something deeply liberating about reaching a place where you no longer need external validation, where your decisions are not shaped by fear or the need for approval. When you live with unwavering integrity, when your presence speaks louder than words, when your actions align with your values, you become someone who naturally inspires those around you, not through force, but through example. The people who truly see you will respect you, and those who do not, they were never meant to walk your path anyway. The Buddha taught that real power does not come from controlling others but from mastering oneself. Compassion, wisdom, and self-awareness are the greatest strengths a person can possess. They allow you to move through life with both confidence and kindness, clarity and warmth. To be strong does not mean to be cold. To be decisive does not mean to be unyielding. To be independent does not mean to be alone. It simply means that you walk your path with certainty, guided by an inner compass that no storm can shake. And so, as you reflect on everything we've explored today, ask yourself, which of these traits do you recognize in yourself? Where do you feel strong? And where do you feel challenged? Growth begins with awareness, and awareness begins with reflection. I would love to hear your thoughts. Comment, Unshakable and Free, below, and let me know which of these qualities resonate with you the most. If this message spoke to you, if you found something here that made you think differently, that gave you clarity or encouragement. Consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear it too. Strength is not meant to be hoarded, it is meant to be shared. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I appreciate you, your presence, and your journey. Stay mindful, stay strong, and I'll see you in the next video.